Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Bobble Pod. On this episode, we're going to be talking about a business journey with my guest, Phil Fraser. But as always, don't forget to like, follow, subscribe if you're listening on any podcast streaming platform. And if you're on YouTube, hello, YouTube. Don't forget to click on the subscribe button and the bell notification to get updated on our weekly episodes that come out every Tuesday. So, straight with the episode, a business journey with Phil Fraser. Welcome, Phil. How are you doing?
Hi, good morning. I'm good, thank you.
Thank you for joining us on the podcast. I know we record quite early in the morning, so it's good to hear whilst we've been testing you had some good breakfast. So introduce yourself. Who is Phil Fraser?
Okay, so my name's Phil Fraser. I'm what I call myself a business sounding board, which is sort of halfway between a coach and a mentor. And I work with SME business owners, in essence, to help them not be lonely at the top.
Fantastic. And how long have you been doing that for?
Probably a couple of years now. I sold my business. It's just coming up to 5 years ago. Just trying to work out what to do with myself since then. But yeah, last couple of years.
I wish I can get to that point where I can sell the business and being like, what do I do now? But I'm probably about 10, 15 years away from doing that. But what will always remain is to my listeners is Bobble Pod. The educational side will never ever go away. And you never know, we'll be talking about like augmented reality and podcasts in 15 years. If podcasts are even a real thing in 15 years, we'll never know. So we're going to talk about your business journey before we get onto the business soundboarding stuff and what that is. So like you said, you sold your business around about 5 years ago now, and you're enjoying what I'd call retired life, maybe to some degree. But tell us a bit about that business journey, because I always like to help our subscribers, our listeners, to get a sense and realistic feel about, the challenges someone faces, the time, that patience needed, the failures that you might have had within business to get to where you are from start to basically sale, which would have probably taken, well, how long did that take? You tell us.
The journey took 18 years. So it wasn't a speedy one. But it started back in 2000. I'd ended up by that point at William Hill, who were based obviously here in Leeds, or they were at the time. And I launched their first ever online casino for them. While I was there, we came across the concept of online bingo. I ended up doing a presentation to the board about whether or not they should get into bingo. They decided not to. By the end of that year, I'd left. Long story short, I decided I would try and launch the UK's first ever pay-to-play online bingo site based on this idea I'd take, or this idea William Hill had asked me to look at. So I sort of shuffled this report around and took it out to the market, real-life Dragon's Den style, to try and get funding, and got absolutely nothing whatsoever. However, what I'd done is I built a very basic website which listed what at the time were the only bingo sites, which were only in the US. And on it, I'd put a very simple pop-up questionnaire to get some information about the audience, sort of basic demographics, age, sex, spend, frequency, recency, that sort of thing. So that when I was doing my pitch, I at least sounded like I knew what I was talking about.
Yeah.
And what happened was we got approached by some of those American bingo sites that were on my very basic website. And they said, can we advertise on your website? So I said, send me some money and I'll work out how to put a 468 by 90 on
For those that don't know, 468 by 90, that used to be,
standard banner size.
Standard banner. Is it leaderboard? It was classed as a leaderboard.
We had all sorts, all the really, this is how old it is, guys.
Yeah. Going back some now.
That's going back. And that was the bit that became the business.
Yeah.
So totally by accident, we ended up with what initially was a directory and then became a comparison website for online bingo.
Fantastic. The opportunity, I always say, the opportunity is whether you work for an employer or you're out there and you want to, push your own brand out. This shows that even if you tend to do one thing, other potential side opportunities might come from it.
Yeah.
It was only when I was developing my own Bobble Insights platform, did one of my NEDs, non-executive directors, say, man, you don't realize you have 3 businesses here. You don't just have one. And I was incorporating everything into Bobble. And he's like, no, you've got Bobble, the agency, the business insights analytics platform as a separate entity that you could build out into, and the education platform. So it needs other people to come in or other opportunities for people to identify. And people always try and find opportunities that suit them, but you don't realize suit you. So you went to online comparison, and how long was that before you ended up developing and leaving?
So what happened was we basically spent the first 5 years with freelancers.
Yeah.
And we were lucky. I mean, this, one of my, come on to it later, but I think one of the learnings I learned was, if you launch into a growing market, you have more possibility of being successful because the market's growing. So we launched on, we didn't know at the time, but we launched into a market that was just taking off. So as more and more bingo sites launched, we got more and more business coming in. But it took us 5 years before we got full-time staff and offices. And that was pretty scary. Anybody who's launched a business, the first time you take on your first member of staff is really, really scary because, when it's your own business, if it goes well, fantastic. We might buy a new car or go on a holiday or something like that. And if it's a bad week or a bad month, well, we're having beans on toast all week. It's that sort of thing. When you employ staff, you then start thinking, and I remember thinking, it's like, oh shit, if I don't pay them, their children won't have shoes to wear and they'll have nothing to eat and they won't be able to pay their rent. It's really, really scary.
You forget you're responsible for their livelihoods.
Absolutely.
There is an element of pressure there, and I welcome it, but then that's where you got to be smart, and that's where it comes down to finances. You got to have good, strong cash flow to make sure you have it. And the first thing we do with the income, no matter what, is make sure the rent in our office is paid and the staff wages, and make sure Mr. HMRC and that man is all covered off, because they're the fundamentals. But we have good, strong cash flow, obviously. Otherwise, we won't be going for nearly 6 years. But you're right. I remember hiring our first person. It was part-time. And then you become a leader, then you become a manager, then you become a boss in a different perspective than when you work for someone and you're in a management role. Because even though you're responsible for their workload, you're not responsible for, what they do, their P40, their P60 returns at the end of the year, and their wage and their pay slips and what that means, and their national insurance payments. It can be scary, but if you get the right advice and you take some time, it can be done. So what team size did you eventually get to before you?
So we ended up, I think we got to about 12 people was the maximum size. Well, I think at one point, we got up to 14, but we were about 12 by the time we sold the business, yeah.
I know my listeners and watchers might be interested, but you're going to divulge in terms of how much you sold it for? You don't have to answer that question, but it's me being cheeky.
Enough to not need to work ever again.
Ooh, okay. I'm assuming 7 figures.
Yes.
Okay, yeah, there you go. Well, I always say, if you're in a business, you're either in it because it's, some people do have a lifestyle style business where it's like, that's what they're good at, that's what they want to do. And you tend to see that in terms of family run businesses where it kind of stays in the family and they'll be going for a long, long time, and they become a well-known brand. But then there's other businesses that come in. Would I love Bobble Digital still be around in 50 years time? Of course. But would I be part of that in 50 years time? Most probably not. So it's leaving a brand legacy where somebody else comes in and takes it over, and they know the fundamentals, and maybe I consult on that. But I'm here to build to sell, but you've got to make it a sellable proposition.
Yeah, I think one of the things quite early on, actually, I think one of the people get very attached to their own business, and and obviously you care about your business, all that sort of thing. But I think quite early on, I was of the impression or of the attitude that if somebody gave me enough money, if somebody put a big enough bag of cash on the table, I give them the keys. But at the same time, particularly when we sold, we were doing very well. And if we hadn't sold, no problem, we'd carry on. There was no, it wasn't, I didn't have to sell. I didn't particularly want to sell, but an offer came along that made me think, and it was above market value. And I think that's one of the things I learned along the way is you have to understand what your market value as a business is. Because somebody says to you, if I come to you, Manny, I said, right, there's £1 million for the business. Do you want it? Now, you don't know whether that's a good offer or not.
No, I'd have to get someone in to get a full valuation of the company.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I would already see, my instinct would be saying no straight away, because I know the minimum I want to walk away with.
Yeah. And then
for
you
me
could
to be able to
do what you want to do.
Yeah.
And I think, and again, market value comes into that as well. So if you know how much you want to sell for, and then once you understand market values and market multiples, you can then go, right, okay, for me to get whatever your figure is, and let's say agencies are selling at 5 times, you can work backwards and go, right, I need to get to that point, and then I know I've got a business that's worth what I want to sell it for.
Right. What was the key learning point from that whole journey?
I think the key learning point, I mean, there were lots and lots of learning points, but the key learning point I tend to talk about regularly is just do it. Follow your gut. Because what tends to, obviously do your research, work out, have a look at the market, whatever it is. And if your gut feeling says, oh, I need to go over here, I would always say do it. Because if you do it and it doesn't work, fine, you tried it, you'll learn from it, and off you go. If you don't do it, you'll just beat yourself up all the time to go, oh, I wish I'd done that. I wish I'd done that. I wish I'd done that. And
famous quote, it goes, the bill of regret is higher than, the bill of failure.
Yeah.
So, live life without no regrets. And I've said this many times. I was on another podcast as a guest. Shocker. I do attend other podcasts. I don't just host my own. And he was like, if you could give anyone advice, I just said the same thing. Just take the first step. Can you see your next step within setting up your business? And it never feels good. Trust me, it did not feel good to set up my own business. At that time, I'm going to give an honest opinion from my perspective, is I sold a 5-litre V8 Mustang, which I had invested and worked hard for, and I paid outright $42,500. Josh knows. He saw it when I was in marketing. And I was on dialysis 3 times a week. And everybody, my whole family is like, oh, why are you giving away a fixed paying job, which you're doing well in, selling all your key assets? What if it doesn't work out? At least you've got some money coming in and elements. And yes, but no reward without taking risk. Now, I was happy to take that risk because the risk is on me. So if the risk and the financial risk and the burden is all on you, then that's fine. And obviously I didn't have to consider family, kids, or elements like that. So instead of my own family and kids, but I had the support of my family to say, well, just try it. But they knew that I couldn't get my head back into working 9 to 5 with my condition. I had to do something different. I needed motivation. So I agree with you on that one. But now you're working on a business sounding board, which is what I want you to help explain to our listeners and explain how that kind of works.
Okay, so what I do is I work with business owners, as I say, to help them not to be lonely at the top. It's great running your own business, as you know.
Yeah.
But with that comes a lot of responsibility. Do we take an office? Do we take on more staff? Do we strategically go in this direction? Do we strategically go in that direction? Do we acquire a competitor? Do we sell the business? All these sorts of questions that you, as a business owner, not you personally, or any business owner has, is who do you talk to get some advice, to get some feedback, to get some input? You can't sit with your team and go, hey guys, I'm not really sure what we're doing. Can you help me? Yeah. That's not really going to go very well, is it?
My advice to any listeners that are out there on a business journey, there's 2, is if you're going to get support from someone, get it from someone who's been through that journey.
Yep.
And no offense to all the business coaches out there, but if you haven't been and done a similar business or actually gone out and built and sold a business, I'm not going to entertain you. Yeah. That's the first question I say to someone. It's like, oh, I can help you in your business. All right. Okay. What's your credentials? Oh, I work as a business coach. Okay. Why do you work as a business coach? Well, I did all this training and stuff. No. What do you know about running a business? When did you feel that fear of hiring your first person? When did you have your first issue of paying your VAT bill or doing your return and being scared that taxman might come after because you might have incorrectly done something wrong? Or how did you plan for scalability? And I give credit to some advisors I had. I've had Gareth Healy on this podcast who advised me in the early stages. I have Steve Sowden and Jamie Allen, who were the directors and owners at Intermarketing, where I previously worked at, and looking to build a longer term relationship with them. But they've been there, done it.
Yep.
But all three of those names have built an agency, marketing agency, and sold it for 7 figures, if not more, and become recognized in the industry.
Yeah. And it's absolutely right. I mean, what I can do with my clients is often I've been through something similar. So I'll often talk to clients about issues, or they'll bring issues to me, and I think, well, yeah, I had that. I was doing that wrong. I learned from that. I had that. And I'm not giving clients advice. I'm doing what the title says. I'm being a sounding board. So they'll come to me and say, I want to discuss X or Y or Z.
Yeah.
And I will say, okay, have you considered this? Have you considered that? What about this? What about this? What are your thoughts? And bouncing stuff back. And eventually the client comes up with their own solutions. I can give them structures to work through those solutions or to get to those solutions. And this all came about very like my first business. It came about by accident. So after I'd sold the business, I was doing some voluntary work. I wasn't actually doing anything sort of paid. And a number of friends and contacts came to me just for advice and said, I've got business. Can you help me with this? Can you help me with that? And I thought they seem to be getting some benefit out of it. I struggle with imposter syndrome. Like, who the hell am I to tell somebody how to run a business?
Imposter syndrome. Honestly, like, I get it. Even when I come on the podcast and I'm thinking, why are people listening to me?
Who the hell's going to listen to me?
Why would someone listen to me?
Yeah.
Why would someone attend a conference where I'm head speaking or listening to?
Yeah.
Why am I getting such feedback? I don't get it, but I guess passion plays a key part. People can see who's passionate and who lives and breathes a specific topic than not.
And I've always been interested in business. So I'm the sort of person, you go on holiday, sit next to somebody, on the beach or whatever, or by the pool, and they go, oh, well, what game are you in? And I go, oh, we sell pens. And most people go, that's a bit boring. I go, you sell pens? Oh, wow. How do you get into that market? How do you market it? What's your USP? All that sort of thing. So I'm actually interested in people's businesses. And I think that helps people as well, that actually I have an interest in what they're talking about. And that whole lonely at the top thing, I've been there. I've done that. I've run a business and thought, I need some advice. And they're sort of looking back at my business journey. I think there were at 4 different points we had somebody who came into the business and helped. And each one of those took us up a step change, because you can't just do it on your own. Nobody is that brilliant. I mean, obviously there are certain brilliant people, but I always go back to the point that Usain Bolt, fastest man in the world, has a coach. So if he has a coach and he's brilliant, why doesn't every other person have a coach?
I always say, like, what I need is, if you ever watch that TV series Billions, Axelrod, some people will. He has a support woman in there called Wendy, who's just like his sounding board, like gives him confidence. And I say, give me that and I'll conquer the world. Or if you want Suits, everybody needs a Donna in their lives. You know what I mean? So, I mean, what would you say, like, is the key pain points when you're advising businesses and business owners that they find? Maybe 1 or 2.
I think the start point I think people come to me at is they're stuck. Either strategically or just generally with the business. They've got to some sort of brick wall of, I don't know how to get around this. Often I've had clients come to me and say, I've just fallen out of love with the business. It's such a pain in the ass. I hate it. I need to get that.
Toll sometimes, isn't it? Yeah.
And again, been there, done that. Yeah. You get to go, oh, Jesus Christ. So I've had people like that. But I've also had people who are just going through that growth stage or those growth stages and just don't know how to get to the next stage. And people often say, what got you here won't get you there. And, that step change, I think sometimes it's that step change, sometimes it's frustration, sometimes it's just an awareness that, right, I need some help. And that's where people come to me and go, look, I need some help. And I don't have a strict sort of set of modules that I go through with the clients. It's very much, okay, what's the issue? And I'll often start with, and this is sort of stolen from 7 Habits, Stephen Covey, brilliant book.
Great book, yeah.
I've read it so many times. But
Second podcast in a row where we're giving book recommendations.
And obviously one of the things Covey says is start with the end in mind. So I will always start with a client and go, okay, what does perfect look like in a year's time? And then we work backwards from there. So it might be, I want to sell the business. I want to get to £1 million sales. I want to have a staff of 100, whatever it might be. And then we work backwards from there. But in terms of individual sessions with clients, I'll always start with, okay, what do you want to talk about?
Yeah.
What's today's issue? Now, it might be, the last session we discussed A, B, C, D. Have you done that? And again, that's one of the key things I do is be an accountability partner. Yeah. And running your own business, you can do whatever you want because you're the boss. You haven't got anybody saying to you, Manny, did you do that? You didn't, did you?
I'd say the only people that keep me accountable are my accountants.
There you go.
When they say,
did you do
what's this expense?
Yeah.
Or why is entertaining expenditure quite high this year? And I'm like, because that was a good opportunity to sit a client out, or maybe I wanted to go myself and I use an excuse to take a client or maybe some staff to that specific event. But no, accountability is probably key. The two things I would say that in business I struggle with the most is, the first one is recruitment. Recruitment is hard. I get advice from this. He goes, because I wouldn't say we've had a high turnover rate, but identifying key elements, like within the last 12 months, we're on our second BD, business development director in the company, trying to make sure we get the right element. And that's key because it's a fundamental part of the business. Yeah. We've had a few senior people come in and just haven't been the right fit for the culture in terms of where they are. The second thing is we're really good at marketing others. But we probably need more structure with our own. I mean, we have found elements in place. I've turned this into a coaching session, shouldn't really. But we've got our showcase events. We've got the Bobble. The podcast is not, I don't care if even one or two people listen. The element is that we're educating. We're out there telling people what they should and shouldn't be doing based on actual expertise and things we have done within the industry and my expertise. And if one person watches that and it goes out there, but you see it on LinkedIn, you see it on our YouTube, you see it everywhere. Yeah. Along with our bite-sized events and everything like that, it's collateral. So if you ever take a trip onto our TikTok, you'll see the snippets from this. After this podcast, you'll get the snippets and you'll be able to promote it and you'll tag us in. And that's a lot of social mentions and new people. Yeah. Yep. And then that more people want to come on the podcast and elements like that. So, and I always find that getting that structure in terms of marketing is a difference between getting to this level, getting from B to C, C to D, D to E. And the advice I've got, which is what we're trying this year, is doing a lot more PR in the business, because the advice I got was like, well, how do I take this to, make sure we hit that 1 million turnover this year, which I know we're going to do, but then scale that to 2.5, 5, 10 million, at which point I'll be transparent. If someone comes in with £10 million offer, bye-bye, see you later, move to Dubai.
There you go. He's quoted a price. Now we know what he's going to sell for.
That's the minimum. Everyone has a number. I always say everybody has a number, to quote Wall Street never sleeps. But they're the pain points that I have. Do you see the same stuff within like marketing?
I think recruitment is always a difficulty. And one of the things I was taught, and my team may or may not agree with me, one of the things I was always taught is get the people on the bus, then find them a seat. So if you come across somebody who's good, however you define good, it might be cultural fit, it might just be you like them, you get on with them, they've got some excitement about them, get them on the team and then work out where you're going to put them. And that does help, because obviously cultural fit is very, very important. And I think the other thing in terms of your marketing, which is, and it's the same with everybody, it's cobbler's shoes. You know, we're great at, and I'm the same. I talk to people about strategy, and I haven't got a strategy for marketing me. And you're brilliant marketeers, but it's almost, if you sat in the mirror and did sort of discussion you have with clients with yourself, do you tick those boxes? Do you do those things? Do you know what I mean? Yeah,
80% of the time we do. If you type in PPC agency leads, we rank, I think, position 1 on Google. Yeah. So we practice what we preach in SEO, and we use these as case studies. Like when we go into, it's like, well, why should we use it for SEO? Well, get your phone out, type in PPC agency leads, and see who's top 3 on Google. Now that isn't achieved by luck. That's achieved by doing a specific SEO strategy. Now put these keywords in, So it's like, yes, we'll get you to page 1 and position 1 on Google. Can't always guarantee it. Depends on how difficult it is for that keyword. Again, transparency is everything, and honesty. But the proof's in the pudding. We can. Yeah. So elements like that.
Have you got a marketing manager or a marketing exec?
No, you're looking at him.
There's possibly one of your solutions is actually who is responsible for the marketing. If it's you, have you got a job spec for marketing? Have you got targets for your marketing? Have you got somebody checking you're doing all the marketing, or are you just doing it when you can fit it in?
Well, right now, it's a shared response. It's a good question. Shared responsibility. The business development director manages our showcase events, our lead forensics, all the leads that come in, CRM systems, what's good, emails, elements like that. We're just going through a new website redesign, because if I go on my website now, I'm thinking 3 years out of date. It's been 3 years since we really revolutionized it. We're launching in the UAE come end of May, so I want to make sure our website reflects that we are UK and UAE focused, and that the content and the design of it looks appealing in both markets, more mobile, responsive. So these things take time. So we do actually have it, and I understand, because that's why I've got a BD in. My next hire is to hire an account manager. Soon I can take my responsibilities away from the client side of things in terms of being there for their clients, so I can focus on the business, because I know once you put my own elements that I put on this podcast and, put it into practice what you preach. Yeah. We do that 80% of the time for ourselves. We're very active with our social media. We don't actually do a bad job. I think out of the agencies in Leeds and in UK, I think we're one of them. Personally, I think if you look at digital footprint, we're very, very, very good at what we do. But even I know I could do more. And if I did more, I'd take more of the market. But
I think the other thing, just to tie a couple of threads in there, is we talk about selling the business. One of the things I'll always talk to clients about who are talking about selling a business is the first thing you have to do is make yourself redundant from the business. The business has to run without Manni. And until it does, it's not particularly saleable. And part of that journey to get you redundant, not necessarily redundant, you're not going to sit around and do nothing, is to slice off those important parts of the role. So if you're head of marketing, then you have to get a marketeer in. If you're account manager and you're the person who goes out and sees the clients, you need somebody to do that. So that's again one of the lessons I learned along the way, was actually making myself redundant. So I think by the time I got a number 2 in, we were moving towards that situation where the business was starting to run without me. Rather than it being me and some people, it was a business that I was overseeing, and wasn't the business ran day to day without me being in the office every single day.
Right, we have to wrap up, because I'm getting notifications from my producer of that. So last bit of advice you'd give to anyone, one quick point, summarize it in 60 seconds. What would you give to someone who's listening to this podcast?
I think we've covered most of it. I think I would say definitely go for it. Take advice. There's no black and white. There's no right and wrong. There's shades of grey, and you just learn as you make mistakes along the way. And then the final thing we just talked about: if you're looking to sell a business, you have to make yourself redundant.
Some really, really good insights there. Thank you, Phil, for joining us. That was a really, really good, insightful conversation.
Thanks for having me on.
And thank you for everyone for listening. Don't forget to like, follow, subscribe if you're streaming on a podcast platform. And if you're on YouTube, don't forget to follow. We're going to be doing episodes weekly now, all the way through the podcast series. So join us for our next few guests, which I'll keep on the wraps, and I'll keep that as a surprise for you. But thank you again, Phil, and thank you for everyone for listening. We'll catch you on the next episode.